So this is a week in the life of a presidential campaign reporter. I left town on Monday afternoon. I'm based in Washington, D.C., so I always make sure I get a window seat to enjoy that beautiful view on my way out. Ended up in the battleground state of Michigan. Let me tell you, the Grand Rapids Airport is really nice, and this was the lovely view I had from my hotel downtown. Went to bed Monday and got up really early on Tuesday. I think it was 5 a.m. Had to pack my bags and immediately hit the road to drive about an hour north to a campaign event that vice presidential nominee J.D. Vance was going to be holding. The weather was not ideal, but it honestly helped me stay awake during the drive. Got there, it was dark. This is a farm in the town of Big Rapids. I even filmed an Instagram story at the time as I was trudging through the mud to get to what's called media preset, where you set up your gear. This is my phone rig that's attached to a tripod and some cables to get audio. Eventually, members of the public were let in through airport-style security, and this was my view from the press riser as the sun started to come out and we started to bake. It hit almost 90 that day. I've learned to bring towels from the hotel with me to help me get through it all. Here's a look at the security. Bulletproof glass on stage, even snipers perched up on those 18-wheelers. A lot has changed since Donald Trump survived that assassination attempt a couple weeks ago. There's my best friend Torian, who works for CBS. We were able to say hi from afar, and there's Senator Vance when he took the stage. Afterward, I packed up my gear, went back to my car, and cooled off, blasted that AC. Luckily, it was 10 minutes after I got to the car that a torrential downpour happened. Waited for the rain to cool off and then set my gear back up to shoot one more stand-up before going to a Panera nearby and inhaling some lunch. Ended up making the hour-long drive back to downtown Grand Rapids, where I was going to spend the night. Once I'm back at my hotel, I always plug all of my gear in so that it can recharge. The following day, I stayed in Grand Rapids to get video around town and to interview voters on the street. This was a really nice river area that I found, and that's a shot of me filming some video. I always have my gear positioned in my car ready to go because sometimes I literally stop people on the street and ask them if I could interview them. Then I grabbed some lunch and started going through that video and writing a script. This is the microphone I use to track voiceovers when I'm in the field. You put it right up to your lips and it actually helps isolate the sound, so it's pretty handy. And if you're not familiar with video editing, it's a pretty complicated process. This is Adobe Premiere Pro. I have to splice together all the video, all the audio, and try to make it look good. I do all of my own editing, so that's a glimpse at that. After 2 days on the road solo, my colleague Leo met up with me to be my photographer for the rest of the week. This was our beautiful live shot location from the rooftop of our hotel in Grand Rapids. We finished that up, broke down the gear, and then went off to find some dinner. I struggled to eat healthy while on the trail, so I was proud of myself that night because I found a restaurant that was able to cook up some grilled chicken and broccoli. Ate that before crashing because the next day had another early wake up. We had to drive about an hour east for a Donald Trump campaign event. This was me struggling to get awake. Leo and I packed up all his gear. He travels with a lot more, and we drove to the town of Potterville, where we were greeted by a very long line to get through security for another media preset. There's all the other TV crews as we were waiting to get in what ended up being a steel distribution plant that we set up at. This was the setup. It's funny when you go in for those presets because you see them still putting the signs and all kind of the flashy things together, but there we were. While Secret Service did a security sweep, we sat in the car for a few hours and turned our latest story. We upload all of those pieces through a site called Latiku, and you have to hope you have a good internet connection for it. Then we worked the line as people waited to get in and shot some interviews before getting back inside. There's my buddy Torian again. He was kind enough to lend me his little fan because there was no air condition inside this plant. But we started to get in place. We tried to do a live shot, but everybody started having signal issues, and we ended up having no Wi-Fi and no cell service for about 3 or 4 hours, which was a process. Everybody was hanging out because former President Trump was running late. He ultimately showed up about an hour late and then spoke for over an hour. A lot to take in as I tried to figure out a script. Once we turned our story, we did the hour drive back to the hotel, found some dinner, and then I tuned in to Vice President Harris's first TV interview since she became the Democratic Party's nominee. The next morning, we had one more live shot in the 8 a.m. hour. Then I was back in the hotel room to call into a radio show. If you've ever listened to 1A on NPR, I was part of their Friday News Roundup. Did that for an hour, then packed up and headed back to the lovely little Grand Rapids Airport, where we boarded one of those smaller shuttle flights for what ended up being a quick flight back to D.C. I'm nearing 40 flights in 2024, but I love to travel. Made it back to Reagan Airport and eventually home by Friday afternoon. Whew.